France must make preparations for a definitive break and completely withdraw from Africa. Africa belongs to Africans, not France. She belongs to no one else, neither China, nor the United States, nor anyone else. And the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elites, and the African diaspora all stand united in saying no, it cannot continue any longer.
Man, what a week. Senegalese youth are saying they are in charge of their country, they're in charge of their affairs. France, get out of Africa. The newest leaders in town, now the Prime Minister and the President, the youngest black president in the world today, they are making statements that Africa needs to be in charge of its affairs. France came up with this whole policy of civilizing Africa, and how degrading can that be? Beyond that, it's all these decades after independence, France still wants to keep its tentacles, its murky hands in African affairs, in African resources. But the young leaders who have just been elected into office, having been thrown in jail, obviously through the meddling of France, and working in cahoots with the outgoing president, Macky Sall. But they have made a bold statement and won the election in the first round. If this isn't an exciting time to be alive in Africa, I don't know when. So black diaspora, Africans on the continent, this is your moment of pride. Seize it. This is the strongest message so far. And also coming at a time when, remember last year, there were so many coups in the West African region. And the biggest culprit there, France, Macron and the French state. Not the French people, but the French state. You need to listen to this to the end. Listen, share and like, and let's discuss.
It is high time for France to lift its knee off our neck and put an end to this unjust oppression. Centuries of misery, human trafficking, colonization, and neo-colonization have caused immeasurable suffering. It's time to put an end to this cycle of oppression. It's high time for France to leave us alone. It's time for France to take a cue from its European neighbors and learn a valuable lesson in independence. Germany is the leading economic power in Europe, significantly surpassing France, which is ranked as the third or fourth largest economic power globally. Germany does not exploit any country, any colony. I can mention Italy, I can mention Spain, who had colonies before, but who do not exploit anyone, who do not interfere, who do not impose leaders in their former colonies.
Yeah, in fact, Italy has been very critical of France, and specifically Macron's policies. So it's not surprising that Ousmane Sonko is saying that here. He happens to be the new Prime Minister of Senegal.
On what grounds does France believe it can continue to impose leaders on us and make choices on our behalf? This must come to an end. And the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elites, and the African diaspora all stand united in saying no.
Please note, the emerging Africa, the African youth, the African elite, and the elite have been a problem in Africa, really, they have. But he also sends out a message to the African diaspora. So that includes the entire African descendant family who are out there in the West, in the Americas, in the Caribbean. So listen up, guys. This is a message that you need to really embrace.
It cannot continue any longer. France's hypocrisy is evident and pervasive in daily life. Let's examine the cases of Mali and Chad as prime examples of this hypocrisy. In Chad, where the constitutional process has been interrupted, France applauded and its president visited to officially consecrate the new king's coronation ceremony. In Mali, where it is not the constitutional process that has been interrupted, but the transition process, France has condemned and even packed up its things to say that it is leaving Mali. That's hypocrisy. It's the double standard. It is the double language that France employs in its dealings with Africa. During our questioning of Mr. Jean-Yves Le Drian regarding the situation in Ivory Coast and France's decision to allow a third term, he provided a clear explanation. He stated that while he accepted the third term for Ouattara, he refuses it for Belarus. He emphasized that France has condemned the situation in Belarus and has actively encouraged the European Union to do the same. Le Drian explains that in Belarus, millions protested, unlike Ivory Coast, where there were no mass demonstrations on the streets. This is how France deals with African issues. Personally, we expect absolutely nothing from France. We desire her to cease meddling in our matters so that the people of Senegal can exercise their freedom of choice rather than being influenced by France's selection of a candidate using the tactics we are aware of. We begin by targeting individuals, adorning them with the Legion of Honor or a similar knightly rank, enlisting them in Masonic lodges, and informing them to prepare themselves as they will be next in line. Even the hypothesis that Macky Sall may not succeed, we know who is being prepared by France. This must come to an end. It will not occur in this manner any longer. Let's be clear. We have absolutely nothing against the French people.
I think that's important to underscore, that the Senegalese do not have anything against the ordinary French citizen who is going about their business as a friend and as a visitor. But the French state obviously has a problem in Africa. The meddling, the interference, the attempt and the continuous imposition of leaders in Senegal, and especially the West African states that are under the CFA franc. And that's the same place that France hives off its resources, especially uranium, that powers its nuclear system, which provides the bulk of the power for the French state, for the nation of France.
In France, both political and citizen voices are rising to hold and express the same discourse as the one I am currently presenting to you. For example, the deputies, such as Mrs. Frédérique Dumas, who regularly speaks on the platform of the Assembly, who regularly writes to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, since she is a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, to raise this unfair behavior of France towards Africa, hold the same speech as us. The same Mr. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Jean-Paul Lecoq, André Chassaigne, all deputies, hold the same discourse as us, and hundreds of other voices. The NGOs, like other non-profit organizations, are doing remarkable work in the same direction. We strongly urge France to listen to the voices that speak to it about our plan for a more collaborative, fairer, and sustainable partnership between Africa and France. It is crucial that we work together towards a future that is equitable, just, and environmentally conscious. If she listens, I believe we'll have beautiful days ahead in our collaboration together. If he doesn't know how to cut it, thinking he can continue to function like in the time of our grandfathers, this African youth no longer accepts it. France must make preparations for a definitive break and completely withdraw from Africa. Africa belongs to Africans, not France.
The warning salvo has been fired. Africa belongs to Africans. France needs to make a break. Is Macron listening? Ambassador Shiombori has been on this drumbeat major for the longest time that France needs to get out of Africa. France, historically, has been a big meddler in politics within Africa, and especially the West African region, where through the CFA franc, France refuses to let go of these former colonies, ensuring that their tentacles are stuck deep within the economic systems of these countries, within the supply chain of these countries, and that is sad. The leaders coming in have said, it is enough. We cannot let you continue doing what you're doing. This will be a challenge though, because changing the currency overnight might not be possible. It could have serious ramifications, but in the long run, that journey will have to start that decision will have to be executed. And it is very clear now why the now new Prime Minister of Senegal was constantly fought by former President Macky Sall. And to that extent, therefore, we must see the hand of France. We must see the hands of French President Macron, because there were trumped up charges, and in the long run, Ousmane Sonko, who was a very dominant candidate and came third in the previous election, was then effectively stopped from running for president. But the magic of all this is that he then figured that the best way to deal with these guys is to get his compatriot, who has now become president, to be the man to take charge of the country. And what a win, what a statement. And I bet, obviously, President Macky Sall is not in the country as we speak. He wouldn't be there after the manner in which Ousmane Sonko was treated and thrown in jail, and President Diomaye Faye was also thrown in jail. These gentlemen were only released 10 days to the ballot. So obviously somebody was thinking 10 days will not be ample time for these guys to win this. And whoever was the project would emerge as the leader, as the winner of the election, the presidential ballot. But ultimately, the Senegalese people decided, we are tired of you, your antics, and your Western godfathers. And what a powerful message. The two builders' tones that were rejected by the ruling elite of Senegal eventually emerged as the victors in this election. If you look at this image now, where the president-elect at the time and Ousmane Sonko visit the State House, looking at Ousmane's body language and the interaction between him and President Macky Sall, you can see this a residual element of the tension that exists between these two gentlemen. Ousmane knowing fully well that he was robbed of an opportunity to eventually rise to the position of president in this country. But in his wisdom, in his sportsmanship, he figured that for politics to play out fairly, and for Senegal and the youth of Senegal to really get what is due to them, then he may lose out. He may have been sacrificed. But to have his compatriot then run as the presidential candidate and win is a win-win for both him and President Diomaye Faye. But most importantly, a big win for the Senegalese people who wanted change, who wanted to part from the neo-colonial influence of France in Senegal and Africa. Listen, if this resonates with you, please share your comments below. Share your thoughts, like and subscribe. Let us inform the world that the African youth are saying it is time to take charge. The wind of change that began sweeping Africa with the coups that were happening, much as coups complicate things to a certain degree. But the message is clear that Africa is tired of the meddling of the West. The two compatriots now at the helm of Senegal will have to watch out. Because remember that President Bassirou Faye has been able to rally the troops because of the support that he got from Sonko and his people. So there obviously will be a temptation from external forces to try and interfere, maybe even knock their heads and scuttle the beautiful journey that has just started here. That is something that, my two brothers, if you can hear me, you will have to watch out for. History will prove us right or wrong, but remember what happened in Burkina Faso. Blaise Compaoré and Thomas Sankara worked together, bosom buddies, always together in their youth, and indeed they would spend time in their various homes. Blaise used to spend the night at President Sankara's parents' home. But in the long run, the one man who was used to get rid of President Thomas Sankara was Blaise Compaoré. Through forces, some of whom came from Liberia, during the upheaval in Liberia, And we all know how that turned out. So knowing your journey, knowing their journey, this is something that these two brothers will have to watch very, very carefully. Senegal has started on a very good path. What Senegal is doing can have an infectious effect on the populations, on the young populations within Africa, so that we can make meaningful change and get rid of Africa's center elite who have been around for 4, 5, 6 decades and have their roots so deeply entrenched in games that they play with Western powers, and now they're engaging China. There is even Russia knocking on the doors. African leaders, young leaders, this is something you will have to watch very keenly, very carefully. For us, we can only say congratulations, felicitación, mabruk, mabruk, as they say, and in Kiswahili, from East Africa, where I'm from, we say hongera. And we wish you nothing but the best, our Senegalese brothers and sisters. We hope that you can push your country forward and set an example that will inspire generations to come, inspire Africa to get its act together. So I say thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe please. Ring that bell. There's a lot more to come. This is AOB. I'm out.